Hello, family, and welcome to episode 2 of Dad and Daughter Reads, a book club podcast. We will be discussing Blood Over Brighthaven, chapters 7 through 12 today. I'm James, aka Dad, and joining me today is my lovely daughter and co-host, Miranda. So last week we talked about our 2024 reading. Do you have any big reading plans for 2025 or a TBR? What about a reading goal? Is there a certain number of books you're targeting to read in 2025, Miranda?
Yeah, I'd like to try to read about 2 to 3 books a month this year, including our book club here. So I guess like 24 to 36-ish books this year. I think my main goal is to read all throughout the year, though, as opposed to just getting on a 3 to 4 month long kick in the spring, summertime, which is what I've done the past couple years. So I really want to try to spread it out. And my goal is to just make sure that I read a little bit daily. Have a couple series. The Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson was recently recommended to me since the 5th book, I think, just came out recently. I was told it had a tortured hero, which I love a tortured hero. A couple other books. So Let Them Burn and This Ends in Embers is 2 books in a series by Camilla Cole. It's fantasy and liberation style. I think it's young adult, but it looked interesting when I was looking up books by Black BIPOC authors. And then, of course, we love the Red Rising series here, and the last book to the Red Rising series should come out this year called Red God. Totally on my list. And then also I looked up too The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi, the second book to that one. I loved that book when I read that book. Dad, you actually recommended that book to me, and it was one of my favorite books that I ever read. That was in 2023. But the second book, which is untitled as of right now, by Shannon Chakraborty, is expected to come out in September 2025. So I'm very, very excited about that because
I didn't realize that was coming out this year. That's a good one. I'm going to have to add that to my list.
Yeah, add that to your list. I looked it up today because I wanted to know. But it's untitled as of right now. So who knows if that'll move or change. But when I looked today, it said expected September 2025. So that's very exciting. And then a couple memoirs and audiobooks I want to read or listen to, because I like to listen to memoirs, is Wild West Village, which is a memoir and essays by, I think she's a singer-songwriter, Lola Kirk. But I live in New York City, so I love a memoir based in New York City. And then Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner, which has been on the list for a while, very late in the game there, but definitely want to try and listen to that this year. And then as far as standalones, I don't have any specifics, but I would like to read more weird books about women and female rage. I have a lot of books saved on my TikTok that I need to look through that are like crash out core and weird girl books. And also I have a lot of absurd books on my TikTok that I have saved that I really want to dive into because they dive into societal issues. Those are a lot of the types of the books that show up on my algorithm and that I enjoy. So I got to go through all that. I'll probably just go through, write a huge list and just pick a book or 2 a month to get from the library or from thrift books, which are, I'm going to plug, which are my 2 best ways of getting books is the library, the local library, and thrift books.
All right. Well, hopefully you can keep your reading up throughout the entire year. That's what I'm going to try to do because my reading goal is 52. That's a book a week. It's going to be difficult, but
yeah, that's lofty.
You'll see that some of these books aren't very long. So I got a couple of long series, and I say that, but one of those series is actually 6 novellas and 1 novel. So that's where I was saying some of them aren't very long, but I'll count each one as a book. Why not? Who's going to stop me? Anyway.
Nobody here. We don't judge how people read on this podcast.
That's right. So I'm going to start with the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb, which I mentioned last week. I've already finished the first book in that, and I'm on the second book, Royal Assassin, right now. I'm not going to read the entire 16-book series, The Realm of the Elderlings. I'm just going to stick with that first trilogy for now. Maybe I'll read the second trilogy late in the year. I don't know yet. Other than that, I'm going to be reading The Expanse, which is a 10-book series, if you include the short stories, which I will, because I'm going to intersperse those stories in the timeline of the other books. So there's a reading list online where you can do that. So I'll have to maybe put the link that I'm using in the show notes. The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. I'll be reading that as well. That's the 7-book series where 6 of them are actually novellas. So they're pretty short with 1 novel. From there, and now these aren't, I say from there, but these aren't in any particular order. It's probably going to change. I'm going to read the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. That includes Jade City, Jade War, and Jade Legacy. I've heard great things about them. They're all over TikTok and everywhere else. As well as the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin, which includes the 5th season, The Obelisk Gate, and The Stone Sky. Also heard great things about those. Some standalones I'll be reading are The Mask of Fear by Alexander Freed. This is actually a Star Wars novel, and I will say I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. Like, it's not my favorite big IP out there. But when it comes to novels, I think when you look at things like that, Star Wars, Forgotten Realms, and Dragonlance are probably the big three when it comes to, already created worlds that some authors write in. But this one takes place between episode 3 and 4 of the movies, which means it's the reign of the Empire. That's the name of the trilogy, the reign of the Empire. And this is going to look at Mon Mothma and Bail Organa. So it's going to be a lot of political intrigue, which I really enjoy. And I found out I really like political intrigue by watching the Andor series, which is a Star Wars show on Disney Plus. And there's kind of two plots going on. You have Andor, which is a little more action oriented, and then you have Mon Mothma, which is more political intrigue. And I really enjoyed that political intrigue of that show. And that's why when I saw this book, I wanted to read it. And then there's also my yearly Stephen King book that I usually read every October. This year it's going to be The Shining, because I haven't read that. I think that's his first novel too. I've seen the old movie with Jack Nicholson, from the 70s. So I'd like to read the book. And then I'm also going to read one classic this year, Moby Dick. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully I don't DNF it, because I'm really not sure how much I want to learn about whaling. And I've heard there's a lot of technical stuff about whaling in there. And so we'll see how that goes. I've always wanted to read it. So I don't know. That one's kind of scary.
I've never read that. You think I don't know, you think we would have read that in high school or something. I feel like that's such a TV show thing, but no, I've never read it either. So
and then
good luck.
Of course there's, thank you. I'm going to need it. Then of course there's Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. I think we talked about that last week as well. That one comes out this year. And then Red God, like you also mentioned, the final piece of Red Rising series.
I can't wait. I cannot wait. Oh my God. That's one of my favorite series I've ever read. And I'm going to be so sad
it's up
when
there
it's
for
over.
me. It's hard for me to pick between that and Dungeon Crawler Carl right now. I like both of those.
Yeah. Well, we want to hear from you. What's on your reading list right now? A gripping thriller, a cozy romance, or even the latest trending title from TikTok? Let us know what's capturing your imagination. Share your current reads with us on Blue Sky using hashtag #DadAndDaughterReads. We'd love to shout out some of your picks in a future episode.
All right, it's time for the social media book buzz.
Buzz.
Some of the things I've been seeing on social media lately are some books that people want to read in 2025. We just named ours, so let's see what other people are saying out there. One of the books I've seen a lot is Empire of Silence by Christopher Ruocchio. It's the first book of a 6-book series called the Sun Eater series. So it's basically a space opera from what I've heard. The first book was published in 2018. There's a total of 6 books, and I think it's all complete. I think 6 is all it's going to be. It's a very popular series, and it gets compared to Red Rising, because it's a space opera as well. So I don't know if you've heard of that one.
Check it out. I haven't. I'll have to check it out. I love a space opera.
Yeah. And then there's Oathbound by Tracy Dion. This is the 3rd book in the Legendborn cycle. It's going to be released on March 4th. The first 2 books are called Legendborn and Bloodmarked. So this is a young adult series. I've read the first 2 actually, and it's got a really cool magic system, and it deals with descendants of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. And it's about a teenage black girl who gets caught up in this secret society as she finds out about her mysterious ancestry and how it ties into this King Arthur society. It's a pretty good series, and I'm sure I'll continue it when that 3rd book comes out. Maybe not right away, but eventually I'll get to it. And then another one I was seeing was Water Moon by Samantha Soto Yamboa. A woman inherits a pawn shop where you can sell all your regrets, and then embarks on a magical quest when a charming physicist wanders into the shop. And I've put this one actually on a possibility for our book club, so we'll see. It comes out today as of recording, so by the time this podcast airs, it will be out.
I saw Water Moon too when I was looking into books, and I literally went to go add it to our list, and I saw it was already there. So yeah, I forgot about that, but I remember reading about that one too. Yeah, you did beat me to it, and I was like, oh my God, that sounds like a good book. So that's exciting. I think we should definitely, hopefully you guys can vote to read it as well, because I would love to read that. But I'll read it anyway.
A woman inherits a pawn shop where you sell your regrets. That's an amazing first line. I like
Yeah,
that.
that sounds really good. I love books like that in general too. But yeah, so I actually texted my friends today because I was like, what's everybody reading? What's everyone gonna read this year? And my friends, a lot of them love their romance. So I know the Fourth Wing series is very popular, and the third book to that, called Onyx Storm, is coming out this month, January 21st. So lots of people are excited about that romance fantasy book coming out. And then there's also a new Emily Henry book. She is also a romance author. I've read one of her books, but I'm not a big romance girly myself. So I probably won't be reading it, but it's called Great Big Beautiful Life. Also something coming out that a lot of people are into. And yeah, there you go. Those are my friends. Shout out to my friends. Thanks for humoring me. They had a lot of other books that they're reading too that maybe we'll talk about later. But yeah, there you go.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. Let's talk about Audible again. So, as we talked about last week, they had released that advertisement where they were all saying you should listen to audiobooks at 1x speed. Audible Australia tweeted this tweet out here. I'll read it. So, it's basically a table with ins and outs. So in is 1x speed and really appreciating the details. Outs is 2x speed and missing half the details. So they're basically doubling down there. In saying you listened to it. Outs saying you read it. Oh boy. Ins listening to 3 at once and completing your to be listened list. And outs, do audiobooks count as reading discourse? Here we go.
Yeah, they're really doubling down.
Yeah, they are. Ins, wearing all your bookish merch proudly, and outs, judging people's audiobook preferences. Okay, so you say that's an out, but here you are judging people for reading at 2x speed.
Right.
Hypocrisy,
This whole ins
right?
and the whole ins and outs list is judgmental.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, super hypocritical.
And then the last one is reacting to audiobooks in public, not reacting to audiobooks in public. But anyway, so Audible, that was Audible Australia. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on in Australia either. So
Or with Audible.
But even so, I mean this yeah, I mean ins and out tables in general, I feel like are a bit judgmental. So
Right.
putting not judging in it after you just
you're
listed
out.
3 other
Yeah.
things before that as that word judgmental is quite silly, but whatever.
Anyway, moving on to TikTok. Is TikTok going to be banned on the 19th? What do you think?
Well, I think actually I was just on TikTok and somebody posted 5 hours ago that they tabled it for the next 270 days.
Oh, really? Okay. I was going to say, because it's not official
what I
yet.
heard.
Okay, well, I don't know. Did the Supreme Court come out? Because I thought they weren't even going to say anything until Wednesday, which this is being recorded on a Tuesday. So by the time this airs, the Supreme Court should have come out and said what they're going to do. But they can do 3 things. They can uphold the ban, overturn the ban, or give it a stay and send it back to the lower courts for more investigation. So if they take that third option, which I think a lot of people think they're going to do, that means TikTok will still be around for at least a little while longer while it goes back through the lower courts. Because if you listen to what some of the Supreme Court justices were saying, there were several of them that were saying that it sounds more like it's a content issue, which means that's against the First Amendment if that's the whole reason for the banning, if it's because of the content. Don't know what's going to happen. You should know by now, by the time you hear this. I don't know. But in the meantime, a lot of folks have signed up for this app called Red Note, which is like a version of TikTok for China. It is available on the US app stores. And I think most of them are just doing it out of spite. They're like, oh, okay, you want to take TikTok away? Well, then I'm just going to go over to this Chinese app and just give China all my data anyway. So what difference? I don't know how long that's going to last. The people over there seem to be welcoming.
Yeah. I mean, I saw so many TikToks just this morning about how people are saying just like suck it to the government by giving their data directly to China. And that these Chinese users on Red Note are calling us US TikTok refugees. But they're being really nice and like including everyone, and it's actually really sweet. I saw somebody like did like a screen recording of some comments that were left in videos on Red Note and how some of the Chinese are saying like help us with our English homework. And like posting like pictures of their English homework, trying to get help on their English homework, and I think it's really cute and silly. So I'm into it. I think it's really funny. I haven't joined it yet, but I might this week just because it seems silly. So
Yeah, I haven't joined it yet either. I don't know if I will or not. I did see a couple of LGBTQ creators say they got kicked off of Red Note, though. I don't know the
Oh,
exact
uh-oh.
reason. So while I'm sure most of those Chinese people on there are nice and don't really care, but you still have to remember that it is controlled by the Chinese government. So your mileage may vary.
Oh no, yeah, I didn't think about
Yeah.
that.
So yeah.
Also, that somebody did a video on their like terms and agreements, and they're very strict about like what you can and can't do. They're also very strict about like using filters, and they're very strict about spreading misinformation. So I don't know if maybe US citizens won't last too long on there because
Yeah.
we love our
Really.
filters and we love to spread misinformation.
Oh, yeah.
So.
I was going to say TikTok needs to be a little bit better about spreading misinformation. My God. But there is
Yes.
another app that's supposed to be coming out here soon called Neptune. That's also similar to TikTok. That's an American app. It's supposed to be coming out in beta by the end of January. I did sign up for the beta, so we'll see how that goes. If TikTok does end up getting banned on the 19th, like I said, that's still up in the air. So hopefully we'll know by the time this airs. The other options, if TikTok is banned, is what? Moving to Meta, Instagram, and Facebook. A lot of people don't want to do that. Yeah. Not a fan, especially considering what old Zuckerfuck has been saying lately, right? And how he's been acting since Trump is going into office.
Well, because didn't he just recently announce he's trying to take out what the moderators or something?
Right,
He's
the
like
fact checkers.
or fact checkers. The fact checkers.
Yeah.
He's like, fact checkers are making things worse, so I'm taking them out.
Yeah, they're going to go to a more of the way Twitter does it, where the community notes. So everyone's going to fact check themselves, I guess.
Oh my
So
God.
everyone's got to police everyone else instead of them doing their job.
Okay.
Yeah, these guys, especially Facebook. I mean, Twitter, of course, since Elon bought it, has been total right wing. But Zuckerberg, he goes back and forth depending on who's in office. So all he cares about is how much money he can make.
So true. Yeah, I mean, I hate Meta, and honestly, I don't really like Instagram that much. I'm pretty notorious for deactivating my Instagram account for months on end every once in a while. I deleted my Facebook a few months ago. I hadn't been on Facebook in a couple years, and I officially deleted it a couple months ago. But it's just hard because Instagram is so widely used, and it's like, how else do we promote and how else do we share? Because these other platforms just aren't as big yet. So I think, if TikTok gets banned, it's just going to be about having to wait and see what big app is going to blow up next.
Right. Yeah. And that could be that Neptune app. Who knows?
Who knows? Who's
because
to say?
I just don't think,
I
just don't think Instagram is it. I mean, the longest reel you can have is 90 seconds, where on TikTok you can have up to a 10-minute video.
Right.
And a lot of book talkers I've seen are moving to YouTube, and they're just going to either YouTube shorts or start doing more long form stuff on YouTube.
A YouTube resurgence.
Yeah, maybe so.
Maybe. All right. Take us into the recap, Dad.
All right. Let's recap what we discussed last week with Blood Over Brighthaven, chapters 1 through 6. So we have our main characters, Siona Tamil, right? Siona is now a high mage. She's got her own lab. What do you think about Siona and Tamil last week?
I think that they have much more in common than they realize. And I think that they are starting to realize it, and that's why they are growing closer together, and that they actually have both been marginalized by this system that they live in. And Tamil knows it better than Siona knows it right now, or as of the first 6 chapters. It's more of a matter of her getting her mind around that concept, her head wrapped around that.
I agree. All right, and our secondary characters, Archmage Brigham, her mentor, High Mage Renthorn, who is also a protege of Brigham, and then Kara. So Brigham, I still think he has something to do with all this. I think he still has a sinister vibe to him. To me, anyway. I don't know. I mean, there's nothing really in the book saying that, but I just have this intuition that he's not who he's all cracked up to be.
Yeah, it's just so crazy because if that's true, then he's just such a good liar, which, is totally reasonable to believe. But he's just so adamant about her, breaking the glass ceiling. He's so adamant about her showing everybody off and showing everybody up. It'll be interesting if he does go dark, because it will kind of really be out of left field.
Yeah, but there's always twists.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then Renthorn is Renthorn, D-Bag City. And then the magic system, the spellograph, other realm, and mapping. We touched on all of that. I think the spellograph is really cool. And then the other realm is like the little window where they siphon their power from. You got anything on those? Anything to add? We
were trying to remember what the other thing was from mapping, and it's sourcing. So we have the mapping, which is finding the coordinates, and then the actual sourcing of
which is the siphoning
magic.
right?
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
That's the other. I just couldn't remember that
Right.
last time. That's the other thing
Yeah,
that we're missing.
right.
Because somebody can be really good at mapping, but not good at sourcing and siphoning. So you got to
Right, I
have like
gotcha.
that balance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we couldn't remember last week when we were talking about the magic system.
Yeah.
And then we, of course, we have the misogyny of the world. There's lots
So
of that.
much.
No women
So
in
much
magic,
misogyny.
past high mage anyway, until Siona and the Nepo babies.
And all the Nepo babies. So many Nepo babies.
And then we have the religion, which is really starting to pick up into play here. The two sects of Leonite and Terranish. We're going to see a lot of that here coming up in the next 6 chapters.
We sure are. Thank God. Because I was really fiending for it last time. I was like, I need to know about this religion. It sounds horrible and corrupt. And I was right.
Yes, well, I won't comment on that. Anything else to add on the recap, Miranda?
Sounds good to me.
All right, let's move on then. We did have some listener feedback. Jay on Discord was laughing at me because I was thinking of Walton Goggins as Thommel. So I guess I'm just completely off base because that's you and her laughing at me about that. She also said the first chapter was fantastic and made her cry. She liked the dichotomy of the blood being so horrific, but described as flowers on the snow. That was really cool and disgusting at the same time. And she said she couldn't stop at chapter 6 and she pretty much finished the whole book already, which, I probably could have done that myself because it's so good, but I wanted to stick to the book club thing, but that's fine. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I would have done that too if I also had the choice, but obviously can't come into the podcast knowing things you don't know. That's not fair. So, especially after these last chapters, But yeah, I totally agree. That first chapter was awesome. The imagery was incredible. And then also just that emotional journey of sacrificing everything for the hope of a better life was depicted so beautifully. Yes, I agree. Also, sorry, Dad, about Walton Goggins. You're just on your own there. I also just think Thommel's probably like really hot. So.
Oh, so Walton Goggins isn't hot, I guess, huh?
No, he's not.
All right.
I don't think so. Maybe you guys out there do. My bad. But in my opinion, I think Thommel's been, he's working, he's probably like muscular.
I think it's the dialogue because Thommel says ma'am a lot, right? So that's kind of like, Southern and, Western kind of thing. And that's where I picture Walton Goggins because he does a lot of Western. And he was, he played the ghoul in Fallout where he was very much like a Western type character. I think it's just the dialogue that steers me towards him.
Understood. Yeah, like I said, though, I had trouble stopping after chapter 12 this time around, to be completely honest, too. So much has happened in these last 6 chapters. Let's get into it.
All right. So chapter 7, the blurb. So why don't you read that blurb?
That quote in the beginning, I'm going to read it because it was so powerful to me. It says, I have been a goddess. I know you will think me silly, but I am a pious lady of good manners, and I must tell the truth. I have been a goddess, but I am a pious lady of good manners, and I know that in this house there is only space for one God. I am a pious lady of good manners. I will not stay in someone's house where I am not wanted. And that was Irma Mordra to Sereth Mordra, 319 of Tehran.
Yeah, so let's talk about what that means. So it's the Mordra family. We know about Mordra the 10th, right? He was also selected as High Mage along with Siona. So was Irma Mordra here? Was she using magic but no longer does? And is it so her husband can take the glory? Or do you think this is maybe some kind of religious disagreement on the two sects since she's talking about God? Right, maybe she's a Leonite follower and he's a Terranish follower, or vice versa.
I don't know. It sounds to me, that just that very last line is, I will not stay in someone's house where I am not wanted, to me was so defiant. And I thought it was really interesting that it's in their book, one of their religious texts. And so I wonder what would be like around it if they were maybe later on in the text calling her, kind of what I mean, like a Jezebel type in the Bible, or like, a defiant kind of woman that's in the Bible. So I was kind of wondering about that. And so I kind of want to know, like, happened to her. I think it's also really interesting to see that the Mordra family dates back so far and is in these religious texts, and if they even considered themselves gods or maybe prophets. So I hope we find out, because I think she seems like a significant step towards women losing their rights to magic by the founders and the system that they're in.
Yeah, it does seem that could be a possibility from that blurb there. All right, what else happened in chapter 7? There's a big explosion, right? So High Mage Halorus's lab explodes due to a possibly cursed spellograph.
Yes, and did you notice that the building manager who came to check everything out and see what was going on called all the dudes High Mage, but then when he referenced Siona, he says Miss Franen. So
Yeah,
he
I
didn't
guess
call her High
I missed
Mage
that.
Franen. He called her
Right.
Miss, but he called every other guy High Mage. He was like High Mage Renthorn, High Mage Valeros, High Mage, and then Miss Franen. And I was pissed. I was pissed for her. She doesn't comment on it, but I saw it and I heard it and I said,
Right.
"Ooh."
And me being a man, see, I said I missed that, and of course, you being a woman, you saw that right away.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
was like, the details. Amazing.
So Renthorn also asks Siona to join his team, but she refuses, and she suspects Renthorn was the one who planted that cursed spellograph for Haloros to pick up. But I'm thinking, what if now? Okay, maybe it wasn't Archmage Brigham. Maybe it was his idea. Maybe him and Renthorn are working together. That's just for some reason, I just see Brigham just being the bad guy in this book. And because I think the Archmages know more than what's being led on here, which we'll get into a little later. But I just don't think he's all he's cracked up to be.
Yeah, I think when we get into it a little bit later, I definitely see where you're coming from. I just really wonder what his angle would be encouraging her so much to work so hard and to lift her up to this point only to bring her down, because he's just really extra encouraging to her. And he even hints in earlier chapters that he likes her better than Renthorn. So why would he be sabotaging her? Not to say that I don't necessarily believe that he is. It's just I'd be very curious to know what the angle is there.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the angle myself. It's just my intuition.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I
I
think
could
that
be
I don't think
I could be completely
bad.
wrong. I mean, I have been wrong before.
Oh, really? Have you? When?
Of course I have. Come on now.
I'm just kidding. So yeah, we'll see. I don't think it's bad intuition. I just am really like, what's the angle there? But let's also talk about the spell webbing journey, because woof, there is a point where she's describing like all the different steps that you have to take when you're weaving, when you're webbing a spell together. I could barely follow it, but the amount of work and focus and specificity that she puts into it is absolutely incredible. Like, what a woman. I think we got a lot more insight on like how her brain works, and I think we got some background on why she is the way she is, because she talks about her father and her father issues, and they are crazy. We found out in this chapter that he's a political figure, which is why she doesn't want to work in the place the building manager suggested, because the political figures meet there, and she doesn't want to see him. She's telling all of this to Thamel, and it turns out that he abandoned her after her mom died and didn't give her his last name, which she feels is shame because she's a girl. So a big catalyst of her working so hard to prove herself is to prove to her dad that she's worthy and smart and capable despite the fact she's a woman. And any significant work that she does do to help Tehran won't have his name on it. And that is very important to her and why she works the way that she works. I thought that was really cool. I thought that was really good background information we got on her character.
So Siona has daddy issues, and instead of becoming a stripper, she became a mage.
And see, and that is exactly what I was trying to avoid. That was the language I was trying to avoid. Was daddy issues, but okay. Yes.
I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I can see that definitely. As far as the webbing journey, that was a little bit over my head as well. Didn't hit me as hard as it did you, but yeah, that's definitely a lot of work that she was doing, and to be able to know how to do all that just shows how smart she is and talented.
Smart and and dedicated. Just this girl is so dedicated to her work. I thought it was cool that we got this background info of like why she is so dedicated. And she even says she's like out of revenge. She like is being vengeful against her father. I think she like actually says that in the book for glory, which I was like, okay, yeah, pop off,
Yeah,
queen.
I do. I remember that glory part now. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of
I was
missed that
like,
in my
hell
note
yeah,
taking.
that's
Yeah, you're
fine. I got
definitely right
us.
there.
I got us there.
All right, moving on to chapter 8. Amal asks Siona if it wouldn't have been so bad to join Renthorn's team because isn't the goal to have the best end result for the project? And I see where he's coming from there. It does make sense. Later on, he was kind of said it was a test for her to see how she thought about that. Because later on, towards the end of the project, when there's about a week left or so, she was hitting a roadblock in her mapping. And she says that they may have to join Renthorn in the next few days. Thomal is very adamant about not joining now and became very assertive in that, practically yelling no at her when she brought it up.
Yeah, there's definitely something going on between Renthorn and Thomal. Something happened there that we don't know about.
Yeah, something must have happened when he was the janitor, I think, maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Because he's been there a little longer than Siona. He became a high mage before her, so he's got some history there. So maybe something did happen with him and Thomal. We also found out the length of time from chapter 1 to 2 is 10 years. So that would make Kara 14 at this point, and I'm still not sure exactly how old Siona and Thomal are, but it doesn't really matter. We know they're probably their late 20s.
No, we know how old
early
they
30s. Do we?
We know he's 20. Thomal is 20 in the first chapter, so he's 30. And I think they say that Siona is 27.
I missed those details.
You sure did. That's okay. I got it. So yeah, I'm pretty sure Siona says something at some point of like, oh, the 27 years of my life, and then Thomal was 20 in the first chapter, so that makes him 30 now. So I think they're about 3 years apart. They're close in age.
All right. So Thomal notices that the runes that Siona is looking at, they're from the Quinn, specifically the Venhold Indrastay clan. At this point, I'm convinced the magic was stolen from the Quinn by the founders of Terran. We're only on chapter 8. Later on, we are going to find out that that is what happened, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, I came to the same conclusion. So this is colonization to a T. Leon stole magical knowledge from the Venhold Industry clan, called them savages, and claimed it was all from God. Not to mention who he stole from, mainly, was women. There's a lot of theories out there and ideas that once upon a time in our society, we operated in a much more egalitarian, matriarchal way in prehistoric times, where men even worshipped women because they brought life and were connected to nature in a much deeper way than men were. So I feel like the author is sort of giving an ode to those theories and how we've shifted over time, and really asking the question, because Siona even asks the question, how did just a few men, like 3 or 4 men, overpower all of these magical women, these maidras?
Yeah, that is a good question. How did they do that? Hopefully we'll find out later on.
Mm-hmm.
So during this exchange, Siona gets very defensive of the Terranish religion. So it's almost to the point where she's like, this is the way it is, and that's just it. So who does that sound like in our society? Christians. I mean, especially in the US, right? Christians want to put the Bible in school. Well, okay, well, what about the people that aren't Christians in that school? They have to read the Bible. Like, what about the Torah? What about the Quran? Can we put those in school too? That's why religion is not supposed to be in school, because not everybody is the same religion. So don't let me get on my soapbox about that. We'll just leave it at that. But yeah, she's very, very religious, and that's just the way it is, and that's the way it's going to go.
Yeah, she's severely brainwashed by her religion and the society that she lives in. And breaking out of this way of thinking is not going to be easy for her at all, because it's all she knows. It's what she was taught. It's what she's grown up in. And I don't think that that's necessarily her fault. It's just more of a matter of, is she going to listen? Is she actually going to see something that should change her mind? And will she change her mind? We're going to find out.
Yeah. Thomal then has a little parable about a man with good intentions, but his actions end up not doing good things, and a second man who has selfish intentions, but his actions do end up doing good things. And I think this is just going to foreshadow what we're going to find out about the Blight in the next few chapters. The parable also reminds me of that Netflix show, The Good Place. So, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen The Good Place, you might want to fast forward here a little bit. So, when in that show, when they find out that no one has been going to the good place or heaven for hundreds of years, and then they find out that the point system is just broken. So, it's like just buying a tomato would give you negative points because it works kind of like on a karma based system where you get positive points for good deeds and negative points for not good deeds. So if you bought a tomato, and let's say it's an organic tomato, so there's no pesticides or anything, so maybe you get +5, but the people that picked those tomatoes and the farmers were exploiting labor, so you get a -10. So you end up with a total of -5 just for buying a damn tomato, and you were trying to do good. You ended up with negative points. So it kind of that parable kind of reminds me of that. You're doing something that you think is good, but in the end, it really isn't good.
Yeah, that was
Just
a really
little
good
side note
comparison.
there.
Yeah, that was a good comparison that you caught there. That's cool because I love The Good Place. I've seen it a couple times now. But yeah, that's exactly pretty much what he was describing. Like, no matter how good your intentions are, there's so many negative things that can come from it. And does that make you good or bad?
Right, exactly. So we find out that the Quinn women were the users of magic from the beginning, and basically it was all stolen by the founders of Tyrion.
Terrible. Colonization. Did you happen to notice the language in this chapter as well that Siona used when arguing with Thamel? She says something like, not like Quinn, like you're different, you're educated, which was such a lovely way to point out covert racism. That was definitely covert racism. The way that she spoke about that, I thought that my jaw dropped. I was like, oh my God, that's something we hear all the time. Oh no, not you. I mean, not you, obviously. Like, no, not my one black friend. You're different. It's what that sounded like. Because they're getting in a lot of arguments at this point. And it's like she can recognize that he is intelligent and smart, and she likes that he fights her on things. However, at the same time, he's still Quinn. So that was really cool. That was some interesting language that the author used there.
And that just shows you how most of the rest of Tyrion think of the Quinn. Because she thinks of him like that, she thinks of Quinn like that mostly, but not him, right? Like you were saying.
Right, exactly. And then the end of this chapter left me with a lot of questions. Like, was the blight predicted, as they say in their texts, or was it created? Did Leon and the others see power, steal it, and create the blight to wipe out these so-called savages and claim to be the hero? Is the forbidden parts of the other realm actually the blight? These are all questions that I had at the end of the chapter. So let's talk about chapter 9 and see if we find out.
Right. So at the beginning of chapter 9, we got another little blurb in the beginning here, and I'll read that. It says, I say that magic is hope. Well, he's pulling his Obama here with hope. Those who are called tyrannish must ever pursue truth through the light of truth, any man may achieve greatness in God's eyes. Then Leonid, Meditations, verse 30, 2 of Turan. Are you sure about that? Any man? What about Quinn men? And of course, women are left out there. So what that reminds me of is the United States Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal, says Thomas Jefferson, slave owner.
Yep. Sounds about right.
And now we know the entire religion was built off of lies, and the magic was stolen from the women of the Quinn. And here we have another made-up religion. And if there's one thing man is good at, it's making up rules to keep the masses in check.
Absolutely. Yeah, I also really liked learning about Jaime Jadurowin. He traveled through the Quinn, and many said he told lies and fantasies, but Siona found a lot of what he reported to be similar to what Thamel had told her. So not surprising that traveling out of Turan became illegal shortly after he published his adventures, because I bet higher-ups did know he was telling the truth, and they were like, you know what, let's just nip this in the bud so people don't get ideas.
Yeah, they gotta hide it.
Right. So they said no more going out into the Quinn. Also, the history of Androthan Stravos is very fascinating because Leo plucked him from savagery in order to get the sourcing, the siphoning that he needed. Because Stravos wasn't capable of hunting. I think they mentioned he was not able-bodied. So that meant that he stayed closer to his mom and with the other women in his clan and the other Maedras. So he knew a lot about magic. And this was the excellent sorcerer that Leon wasn't. So he needed this man to do a bunch of work for him, basically.
Right.
So
and maybe That's how he was able to take the magic and steal it from the women of the Quinn with his help, the help of Stravos, possibly.
Right, exactly. And I would be curious to know if Stravos was forced into that or coerced into that, or if he did it willingly. Would be very interesting to know. And I said that Leon sounds like an evil cult leader to me.
Yes. And the Kool-Aid is the blight.
Yep. I was like, this man just wants power, and he's just coming in and pillaging, raping and pillaging these people and stealing all their shit and claiming it to be his own, but by using God. So sounds like a cult leader. Sounds like a cult to me.
Yes. And from this, from what Thomel told her of Quinn magic, Siona goes and finds Androthan Stravos's history that he wrote. And like you said, he was Quinn. I think they said he was 1/4 Quinn. And then she uses what she finds from his diaries and whatnot to make the window into the other realm as clear as day.
I have a feeling that he was fully Quinn and they were just trying to whitewash him.
That's possible too.
I think that's my theory. But yeah, so she's going to make a window into the other realm as clear as day. And I have a feeling that that is what's going to get her in trouble, because she is about to see something that she is not supposed to see.
Yes. And so when they're both looking through this window, Thomel recognizes the area. He says it's the land of the Quinn where they live. And then she siphons from it on a bush, I think. And then we see what happens to that bush. And it's the blight that destroys that bush and siphons the magic from it. And now we know where the blight comes from. All right. Moving on to chapter 10, which I like to call Thomel Freaks the Fuck Out, and for good reason. So Thomel realizes what's been going on, and he and Siona have a very heated discussion. And we find out that the forbidden coordinates are Brighthaven. So the question is, does the dome over Brighthaven even really keep the blight out? Or is it just something the archmages made to make it look like, hey, this is going to keep the blight out? But really the only thing keeping the blight out is because they said you can't use these coordinates, because they know. They have to know. Otherwise, why would they make those coordinates forbidden?
Right. They absolutely know. They 100% know.
The only reason that the blight doesn't hit Tyrion is because no one ever siphons from there, because they're forbidden. So
because they're told not to. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. It's forbidden. So Siona, she wants to test this theory. And she ends up testing it on a young girl that she sees through the other realm window. And why the hell did she do that? And it's because she's just too far gone into religion. And she said, God wouldn't allow mages to take human life. But for me, even if you didn't believe that, even if you didn't believe Thomel's theory of what that actually was, she could have just found a squirrel or something, right?
Yeah, no, that was truly insane. Like, absolutely traumatizing. I felt traumatized reading it. But yeah, she was just so convinced in her righteousness and all of her beliefs that she just truly could not comprehend what was happening. And unfortunately, though, in my opinion, this was the only way of truly convincing herself that what she was seeing was real and true. I think it was inevitable. I think had it been a squirrel or something, the stakes just wouldn't have been as high. They wouldn't have been high enough as a human life. So just terrible, absolutely traumatizing. I was shook. I was shook that happened.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. A squirrel wouldn't have been high enough stakes. So it ended up being a human, which really brought the thing home to her where she realized how bad it really is.
Yeah, I think it had to be. I think it had to be that. And that way we could get her. I think she
Right.
needed it to be that so that she could develop
Exactly,
as a
yeah.
character. Yeah.
That makes sense. All right, so moving on to chapter 11. So Archmage Brigham comes to her lab where she's kind of broken down after that happens, and he tells her that she has run afoul of a curse. And again, you think the Archmages know what's going on and are just hiding the truth. Hell yeah, we do.
Yeah, I think it was at this point where I was like, all right, I don't know necessarily if Brigham has been against her this whole time, but they all definitely know what's going on. And he's definitely gaslighting her. Like, this is gaslighting to a T. He is gaslighting her at 100%, calling it a curse. And because she's a woman, he does know that they're all just going to call her crazy if she refuses to give in to his gaslighting.
Right. Yeah. That would definitely happen if she does. So let's talk about
no one's gonna
right,
believe you.
exactly.
That idea of like no one's gonna believe you. So just take my word for it.
Yep. So then let's talk about High Mage Sabernine. He was the one that they called the Mad Mage or whatever, and he started killing the other mages. So maybe he found out the truth and he was trying to take matters into his own hands, and he started killing all of his colleagues, which is why I believe he probably used magic and siphoned them. And because he found a way to see, like she can see now through that window into the other realm, which now we know is not, it's just the normal world. And maybe he started killing his colleagues using siphoning.
Yeah, I think he was definitely killing his colleagues using siphoning for sure. I think it's interesting though that you were thinking maybe it was because he knew, like he knew the truth and he was trying to take matters into his own hands. Like, you're saying in like a
Right. So
vigilante
he found
kind
out
of
the
way.
truth and he probably brought it to the archmages, and then they're like pretty much the same way that, they were going to gaslight Siona. They're telling him, no, that's not true, blah, 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 just go away. And then he's like, all right, motherfucker. He starts killing people. I'll show you. It's true. Yeah, something
Right,
like
yeah.
that, possibly.
Maybe. I was just thinking that like he did figure it out, but I guess I was believing the story of like he was killing his colleagues. He wanted glory and he was just like a murderer. So I was believing that. So I didn't even think about him being a vigilante. Like I thought, yeah, like he figured out how to do it, but because I guess I was just assuming because he's a man, he was just like, yeah, fuck you, and just like murdered people.
So you just thought he was crazy.
Yeah, I just thought he was like a man and he wanted power and he figured out a way to kill these people. And so he did. So it's interesting. It's an interesting theory, though, that he was
I was trying to
a
give him
vigilante.
some
It's a
humanity,
very interesting theory that he was actually trying to do
and be
good.
like, okay, they won't listen to me, so I'll show them
Yeah,
that what I'm saying is true, and I'll do it the hard way so that they learn.
Yeah, right. So that's an interesting theory. I would be intrigued to know if they do touch on that later, and if we do find out that he was actually a good guy and they were hiding that information.
Yeah, because I mean, everything else is a lie that they're telling us. The Archmage side.
Yeah, no, absolutely,
it's all lies. So
absolutely,
just covering everything up the best they can. So after this, Siona goes home to Aunt Winnie and Alba, and she contemplates suicide. She's up on the roof and she's thinking about jumping off, and Alba comes and grabs her before she can do it.
Yeah, which I mean, I probably would have done the same thing after murdering somebody and finding out everything I learned was everything I knew was a lie.
Your entire life is a lie. So yeah, I can see some definite depression there.
Yeah, her entire life is a lie, and she committed murder. Right.
So yeah, things are just going so well for Siona right now.
Poor thing. That girl is crashing out. I get it. Me too, girl.
All right, and then chapter 12 is all about Thomel and Kara here. So we have the return of Kara to the story. So she's 14 years old now. Thomel tells Kara what he found out about the blight and how the magic works, and then he ends up feeling guilty for telling her. And it says that maybe he thought about jumping too, but he's a little bit more stronger about it. He didn't also end up murdering someone, so maybe that kept him from doing that.
Right. And I like this quote, but Thomel had grown numb to the injustice over the years, as all Quinn did if they were to survive. So he's been dealing with it forever. Like he's always known something was up. He was always getting beaten down more, even though Siona, yes, faced a lot of injustices, not nearly as much as the Quinn people have. So I think he's stronger only because he's had to be for the past 10 years, for his whole life, even being out in the Quinn, versus Siona didn't have to be. She just found all of this out now. He's always known something was up. He's always been beaten down by the system in that way. So I think that's what it was. And I just really like that quote because it really speaks to our society and how we operate in it. Like our society. We accept things that we shouldn't accept because it's just easier to go numb and play along than fight. And our system, like in Tehran, forces marginalized people, including white, working, middle, lower class people, to work so hard, work themselves to the bone that they're too tired to educate themselves and fight. I also loved Kara's female rage. The scream was so powerful. So when she did find out about what was truly happening, just that internal guttural feeling of being lied to and and beaten down for so long was super amazing. And it's going to be really cool to see her journey as not only a woman, but a Quen woman who's had to deal with even more than Siona could ever dream of.
And now that Kara knows that, I think she's going to move up to more main character status, and we'll find out what role she has to play in the future of the story. What do you think?
Yeah, I think she's a fighter, obviously. She's going to fight. She's going to fight tooth and nail. She's got a huge spirit, and she is royally pissed off now. She's pissed. So I have a feeling she's gonna be the little warrior, little soldier in the series. And she's been marked, and she's got the scar.
Right, I forgot about that.
Even show it all.
She's been marked for greatness.
Yeah. She has been. So that'll be very marked for greatness or marked for, I don't know. I have a theory that maybe she is going to be like the little soldier. She's going to fight so hard, and then that's they're going to kill her. Like she's going to end up being the martyr of some sort. You know what I mean?
Maybe so.
I don't know. It's just a little theory. Like, cause sometimes the one who's like really pissed off and fighting, they're the ones who kind of get caught in the crossfire. And
what about you, listeners? What do you think is, what's Kara's future look like in the story coming up? Let us know.
Let us know. What do y'all think?
Well, that wraps up our discussion for chapters 7 through 12 of Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wang. Things are getting wild, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, for sure. The twists, the character dynamics, the world building, it's all crazy and so good. But now we want to hear from you, our listeners.
What did you think about this week's chapters? Did anything surprise you? Are you rooting for any characters or maybe plotting their downfall, like Archmage Brigham?
Let us know your thoughts. You can join the conversation on Discord, TikTok, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Links are in the show notes. We'd love to hear your theories, favorite moments, or even your wildest predictions for what's coming next.
So we might even feature your comments or questions in next week's episode.
So don't be shy. Dive in and share your thoughts. We're all part of this book club together.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time for chapters 13 through 18 of Blood Over Brighthaven. Happy reading, everyone.
Bye for now, and don't forget to tag us with your thoughts. Like what you're hearing, leave us a rating and review on whatever streaming platform you may be using.
Our intro music is Upbeat Funk, performed by Mikhail Smusev, and our outro music is Lo-Fi Chill, medium version, performed by Bodan Kuzmin. You can find both tracks on pixabay.com. Thanks for joining us, family, and we'll see you next week.